Hi, everybody. My name is Alysha, and as Marty said, I'm coming to you live from quarantine in Amsterdam. So there aren't very many things that people all over the world agree on, but I feel pretty safe in saying that 2020 has been an incredibly strange year by anybody's estimate. We're in a period of intense uncertainty, and I feel confident in saying that we're currently undergoing a transition at a global level, and none of us really knows what the other side of life is going to look like when we get through this. It's a scary situation, and there's no doubt about that. But one thing is certain in transition, and that certainty is change. I'd like to show you today that these periods of transition are actually opportunities for us to think about how we're showing up in our lives. This transition gives us the opportunity, the time, and the space to consider whether the path we're walking is the one we're following by choice or one that we're being merely dragged along. I started my career as a graphic designer in the United States in the mid-1990s. My path went through punk rock zines and the school yearbook and literary magazine to club flyers and the early internet. I was an activist. I had things to say, and design gave me a platform to do this, especially in the early days of the internet, which made publishing and sharing so easy. My interest in design was always about communication, connection, and sharing. And for me, design was always about service, creating impact to foster change and support growth. I went to graduate school in New England, and when we finished, most of my classmates moved to New York. I chose instead to move across the country, and I settled in San Francisco, a place whose general vibe, progressive politics, and temperate weather really appealed to me. Around the turn of the century, I started teaching graphic design at the California College of the Arts. I was also incorporating what we now call interaction design, service design, and user experience design into what I was doing. My personal practice of design kept growing to encompass the new problem spaces that were being created by the rapidly changing design and tech landscape. I needed to be willing to dive into the sort of uncertainty that comes with the bleeding edge. As my career continued to develop, I became a manager, and I was spending as much time focused on developing relationships as I was on designing products. And I realized that being a manager and being a leader were not the same thing. I was becoming pretty unhappy in my work, to be honest. I hated the hierarchy that surrounded me, and I realized that the relationships I wanted to have with people weren't ones that had a reporting structure built into it. I wanted to have direct, non-hierarchical, close connection with people. I'd had a really good experience with a coach on my own, and I started thinking that coaching might be work that I might enjoy. So I enrolled in coach training to learn some new tools, and I ended up totally changing my life. So in 2017, after nearly 20 years of designing products and services, my partner and I gave away almost everything we owned and left the United States with a duffel bag each, one-way tickets to Bangalore, India, where I was giving a talk, and 4 nights of hotel that was booked for us by the conference. Our plan was not to plan, to surrender and go where life took us, to contribute what we could and to experience what was available to us. We traveled like this for more than 2 years, visiting many countries and 4 continents, making art and building friendships before we finally found a new home in Amsterdam just weeks before the Netherlands would go into lockdown. Each one of these transitions felt a bit like the world being turned upside down. And I do understand that there's a very big difference between the changes that we choose to invite into our lives and the ones that are just dropped on us. None of us wanted to find ourselves here in the middle of a global pandemic, and it is not my desire to diminish or sideline the pain that this has caused so many people around the world. It's important to make space for grief in our lives. It's likely that grief is some of what you're feeling right now, but I hope you won't allow grief to be all that you see. There's a real opportunity to take stock of the ways in which we've been living and to take some time amid all the chaos to think about the kinds of lessons we want to carry forward. How do we want to design the future of life on Earth? Throughout history, explorers and dreamers like us have been courageous enough to envision a better, brighter future. We all want more from life, for ourselves and for others, and this guides the form and essence of the work that we do. The form of our work determines if we spend our time pushing pixels, drawing wireframes, kerning type, sculpting materials, or defining spaces. Our tools and processes may be quite diverse as designers, but the essence of being a designer is a desire to make something better. We want to make something better for someone somewhere in the world. It's as easy as that. The essence of designing is harnessing simplicity, beauty, utility, and authenticity to maximize positive impact. So how does one maximize positive impact today at a time when you can't even come and meet me for a glass of wine? How can we change the world when we can't go outside? I think that it means that you need to focus your efforts on the one target that you can actually control. Start small. Start with you. When I began coach training, the very first tool we were taught was called powerful questions. They're open-ended questions that are asked from a place of pure curiosity. As I move through the world, I think about these sort of inquiries a lot, and I want to share a few of my questions with you today. One profound question came to me through a friend's meditation teacher. She said that one day the master asked all of them to sit down, close their eyes, and picture a beautiful lake. As their thoughts arose, the master asked them to visualize them as sailboats moving across the water. And as they sat there meditating, picturing their boats, the master said to them, "What is the wind that's moving the boats?" What is the wind? What is motivating your thought? Is it fear or greed or love? What is the compassionate choice to make? What is the sustainable choice to make? Not just in terms of materials and environmental costs, but also in terms of attention and societal sustainability. What is the wind? Before you make that snide comment or roll your eyes, what is motivating it? Is it true, authentic emotion, or are you trying to build yourself up by putting others down? What is the wind? Most people will tell you that their desire is to be happy, but my friends, happy is a difficult destination to reach, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for life to happen. Will you be happy when your parent is sick? Will you be happy when your child is frightened? Will you be happy when you've had an objectively shit day? These things happen. Life happens. And if happiness is your destination, you're going to find it very difficult to stay there for a long period of time. So if instead of happiness, you set your goal for fulfillment, you'll find that it's a much easier destination to be. Fulfillment requires living in harmony with your values and doing work that fills you up from the inside. Caring for a sick parent, comforting a frightened child, or returning to a beautiful home after a bad day are all things that will fulfill you, even as life happens around you. So you can think of it this way. Happiness is becoming attached to a particular boat. It's keeping it sailing no matter what the wind is doing, no matter how choppy the water gets. It's putting all of your hopes into that one boat. Fulfillment, on the other hand, is learning to cultivate and move the wind and control all of the boats. There's another great question that is actually a joke that I first heard in a famous speech from David Foster Wallace. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" The two young fish swim on for a little bit, minding their own business, and then one of them looks at the other one and says, "What the hell is water?" The point is that one of the greatest privileges in life is being able to choose the perspective that you take on the world around you, rather than simply going with the default that you've been handed. And when our experiences show us new ways of seeing or challenge the ways that we've been following our lives and challenging the models we have for how the world works, they can encourage us to perceive and appreciate all that we take for granted. As a coach, one of the things that I help my clients to do is to manage the complexity of their lives. I help them to see that being comfortable in the world largely comes down to becoming comfortable with change and surrendering to the fact that ultimately the only thing that each of us can actually control is our own behavior and how we show up in the world. So here we are today on Earth Day 2020. How's the water? I'll be honest with you. For me, these things are true. I haven't stepped outside my front door in a week. There's very active, very loud, and very relentless construction going on next door every day from 8 to 5. I'm in a new country where I don't speak the language. I don't have any kind of medical care organized, and our housing situation is insecure. I need to move in 2 weeks. Almost all of my work has been put on hold or canceled. I have a lot to worry about. These things are also true. My partner and I are healthy. We're together and we generally do a pretty good job at taking care of one another. He's an amazing cook and has kept us very well fed. I've probably gained several pounds. Our digital tools have allowed us to stay connected with our loved ones, both here in Amsterdam and around the world. I have access to books and movies and plenty to keep me occupied. I'm having fantastic conversations with my coaching clients who are showing up with amazing courage in this time. And I have the opportunity to speak with all of you. So I also have a lot to be grateful for. All of these things are true. And I think many of us have realized that we're in a very both and time rather than an either or. We need to find space to be excited and scared at the same time. We need to find a way to be comfortable with holding thoughts that may seem contradictory. Recently, a friend asked what I wanted to see come out of this situation, and without putting any thought into it, I wrote this, which I will read. For me, everything is getting bigger and smaller at the same time. I want stronger local communities, smaller, with truly global ties, bigger. I want people to have the courage and strength to do the work on themselves, smaller, so that they can show up to be ready to be part of a movement, bigger. I want local indigenous knowledge, smaller, to be paired with scientific research, bigger, in ways that will allow traditional wisdom to be better understood and respected. I want people to be thinking of the future with safety and compassion in mind. I want to help people understand that we're all in this together, and that includes the billions of species of plants and animals that we share our home planet with. I want to be a member of a movement that helps bring a new way of being into the world. I want people to understand that caring for and working on yourself is not selfish. It's absolutely vital. I want every person to feel safe at an existential level. Food, water, shelter, and warmth should be the baseline that we provide for everyone. I want to see less greed and less hate. I want to see an end to racism and sexism and homophobia in all of its forms. I want a lot of things, to be honest, and this is just off the top of my head. Each person is significantly more complex than any product we've ever created. People are three-dimensional objects. We contain bodies, minds, and hearts. But the bulk of the data that we collect exists only in the dimension of the mind, because that's the most easily quantifiable. When we rely too heavily on models that equate human beings with data that we can collect and sell, we ignore the body and we deny the heart. This is late-stage capitalism, to be sure, and it's deep and pervasive. And of course, it's baked directly into the business models that power our technological landscape. Profits are what's valued, and quantified data is sellable, so that which is measurable is therefore imbued with value. But the things that we value the most, I'm talking about love, connection, and fulfillment, are fundamentally unquantifiable. By prioritizing only that which can be measured, we've created a world where we've systematically devalued the only things that really matter. The effects of our passion for the material and measurable can be seen and felt throughout our societies. The frantic pace of our lives allows little time for introspection, so we focus on what we can aggregate and automate. Without the time and space to digest and internalize, our experiences become a series of memories expressed as posts and photos rather than integrated wisdom. By devaluing the subjective and personal experience that we each have as individuals, we've been left in a state of alienation from our true selves and nature. Our greatest human achievements have not come from the intellectual realm alone. The things that are lasting and beautiful have been created when people engage their mind, body, and heart as complete three-dimensional beings to create something universal, beautiful, and true. The prioritization of mind over and often at the expense of the body and heart is one of the first things we need to correct. The big problems we face won't be solved with our brains alone. We need to learn to think in three dimensions with all that we are. Our minds solve problems and connect patterns, while our bodies move and dance and our hearts feel and love. And it is all of these things together that make us human. It is only when we support the totality of who we are that we will begin to thrive as a species. So if your work relies on the exploitation of other people, it will not bring you happiness. We need each other. If social distancing has taught us anything, it is this, that each person's future is inextricably tied to every other person's future. We can no longer pretend that we can destroy our planet without destroying ourselves. The scope of these issues can easily begin to feel overwhelming, and it's tempting to think that such large problems can only be tackled using equally large solutions. However, the balance and fulfillment that we experience as individual humans is reflected in the impact we have when we reach out to make changes. The way that we all feel better collectively begins with each of us feeling better individually. So if you want to change the world, you have to start with yourself. When we're unfulfilled, we feel empty. Emptiness feels terrible, so we look for ways to distract ourselves from the pain. This is called numbing. It can be alcohol, drugs, food, sex, my personal favorite, shopping, or social media. But all numbing behavior has consequences. It may feel good in the moment to eat that donut, buy those shoes, or see who liked your tweet. But all numbing behavior steals our attention from the present moment, leaving us, once again, empty. When you're unfulfilled, you go into situations looking for praise and validation instead of searching for opportunities to make an impact. You ask, what about me? Instead of what do you need? Until you are able to take responsibility for your own fulfillment, your presence won't have the same impact. Fulfillment asks you to focus on what really matters to your body, your mind, and your heart, and to set aside unrealistic ideals and perfectionism in order to be authentic to your true self. To get there, you need to let go of your baggage and remember that real freedom is not the freedom to pursue our petty, trivial desires, but rather freedom from our petty, trivial desires. Investing your time and attention in fulfillment gives you more in exchange than just money. It gives you the opportunity to truly be of service. Following your own path involves taking care of your own needs first. Then, lacking nothing, you can truly help others. This commitment to service models the sort of behavior that will inspire your children and the people in your communities to follow their own paths. Authenticity travels in ripples, and like a meme spreading from person to person, or I guess COVID-19, its effects are exponential. This takes a significant amount of courage. It's simple, but it's not easy. Living authentically means casting off other people's expectations, and that can cause disappointment. But if you're unwilling to disappoint someone else, you are going to disappoint yourself. You diminish your impact and you end up empty again. Our 21st century problems require us to stop focusing on our differences and start working together. A bright future is one that honors the shared dreams of humanity while celebrating the strength that comes through our differences. The change we want to see in the world will be led by the people who have the courage to invest in themselves and their communities. So let's make sure we're giving each of our personal dimensions the care and attention that they deserve every day. Because once we're solid in our own personal three, then we can begin to really connect. The things that our children and our societies are wanting from us, vulnerability, authenticity, focus, and presence, are the very tools that we can use to repair the fabric of our societies. We need to leverage all of the knowledge, ability, and love that we can muster. We need to lean into compassion to create love and belonging. We need to stop wanting to be right and start wanting to be useful. We need to stop focusing on material gains and start prioritizing emotional health and safety. We need to be ready to listen and learn. We need to be compassionate toward one another, and we need to be compassionate toward ourselves, because we're all going to win or lose together. It's not East versus West. It's not me versus you. It's not us versus them. It is ultimately all of us versus our worst tendencies, fear and greed and inertia. And it's not just our future that's at stake here. There are 8.6 billion, with a B as in boy, species of life on this planet. We humans are only one of them, and our behavior is endangering all of us. We are behavior and imperfect three-dimensional beings capable of great love. And if we have the courage to do so, we can be more than the sum of 7.5 billion parts. So I want to leave you with one last question, a question that has helped me to face a lot of my biggest fears. And it's this: when something seems too big, too scary, or too much, when you feel like you can't, just ask, what if I did? Thank you.